Good evening and welcome to Look North. Our top story tonight. The deaths of at least 56 babies at Leeds General Infirmary and St James's Hospital may have been preventable, according to the findings of a BBC investigation.
It comes down to the care that people are receiving is way below standard.
Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust says the majority of births are safe and the number of potentially avoidable deaths is very small. Also tonight, a woman who was abused by a group of men in Bradford says the city must be included in the government's latest inquiries into grooming gangs. After a break following their FA Cup appearance, Harrogate Town are in action tonight. We'll look at their chances against Cheltenham. On the mend, we catch up with Mr Jingles the cat, who was found injured and starving in Leeds.
Well, there was a lovely sunrise in Scarborough this morning. But what's the weekend looking like? Well, it's getting much colder, and I'll be back at the end of the programme with all the details.
Good evening and thank you for joining us this Friday night. Parents of babies who died in Leeds maternity units are calling for an inquiry after a BBC investigation has found at least 58 potentially preventable deaths happened at Leeds General Infirmary and St James's Hospital over a 5-year period. A Freedom of Information request shows the deaths of 56 babies and 2 mothers between 2019 and mid-2024 may have been avoided or prevented. The BBC has spoken to 20 families who say they received inadequate care during this period. But Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust, rated good by the Care Quality Commission, says it is one of 5 specialist centres for babies with life-threatening conditions across the country. The Trust says the vast majority of births are safe and the number of potentially avoidable deaths is very small. You may find some details in this report upsetting. BBC Investigations reporter Divya Talwar has the story.
My world just exploded in that moment.
I wasn't listened to.
I nearly died. So this was the blanket she was in. We're probably never going to wash it.
When Amarjeet was 32 weeks pregnant, she went to Leeds General Infirmary's maternity unit with severe abdominal pain twice within 24 hours. Both times, she says she was told she had ligament pain. Days later, Amarjeet needed emergency surgery. A massive internal bleed was found. She survived, but her daughter, Assis, was stillborn last January.
We see families with newborn babies. It's like, you know, we're missing out on this.
I don't want to be here. And I say it to him a lot.
Yeah.
And my own whole family said, it'd be painful for us not to have you. But for me, it's like more painful not to be with her.
Amarjeet believes she was treated differently because of her ethnicity.
There was a white woman and I heard the midwife say, well, you're not in active labour, but you're in pain, but you can stay as long as you want. And the only difference between me and her was the colour of my skin.
A trust review of Amarjeet's care identified issues which may have made a difference to the outcome for mum and baby. It also said concerns about institutional racism had been taken seriously and escalated to senior management. We've spoken to almost 20 families who say they received inadequate maternity care at Leeds between 2019 and 2024.
I was, 24 years old, having to birth a dead child. The care that people are receiving is way below standard.
We've all been made to feel like it's a one-off.
The Trust told us it cares for the most poorly babies as a specialist centre. It said the vast majority of births are safe and potentially avoidable deaths are very small. The CQC rates Leeds maternity services as good, but a clinical staff member working there says they're unsafe. This former maternity support worker who did shifts there in 2023 agrees.
Maternity services at Leeds, I think, are truly disgusting. How chaotic it is, the lack of listening to patients. That's when disasters happen.
Fiona and Dan don't think any future CQC investigation into Leeds could be independent with Sir Julian Hartley as its chief executive. He was previously chief executive of Leeds for 10 years, and in his post when their daughter Aliona died after gross care failings.
There's a huge conflict of interest. If the CQC was to say, no, that's not going to be the case, we're going to be fair and transparent and accountable about this, you wouldn't have anyone believe it.
The CQC, replying on behalf of themselves and Mr. Hartley, told us it had policies to manage any conflict of interest, and that Leeds maternity services were inspected last month in response to concerns raised by families. Leeds told us it apologises to these families and says it's committed to providing safe care. This group want an independent review of Leeds maternity services, so lessons are learnt and no others experience their grief.
Well, let's get more detail on this now from Divya, who's been investigating the issue. Divya, can you tell us a little bit more about those concerns from the families and what they want to happen?
Well, we've spoken to almost 20 families now who say that they received inadequate maternity care at Leeds, which they believe has led to avoidable harm. The common concerns that the families have told us about is the feeling that they were not listened to, and they say that the trust has a culture which lacks compassionate care. Now, they want accountability and they want lessons to be learned, and they believe that the only way that that can happen is through an independent review into maternity services run by Leeds. So today they've written to West Streeting calling for that review, and they say that they want senior midwife Donna Ockenden to lead that probe.
And you've also heard from whistleblowers who worked in the hospitals. What have they had to say?
Yes, that's right. We have heard from 2 whistleblowers who've echoed concerns that have been raised by the families. One staff member currently working for the trust has described chronic understaffing, a service that is completely broken, which they say meant that they were not able to deliver the quality of care that they wanted to. Separately, another member of staff, a former member of staff who carried out shifts there in 2023 as a maternity support worker, she echoed those concerns. She called the maternity services chaotic. She said that women were often not listened to, and she said that that's when disasters happen.
And what has the response been from the Trust and the CQC?
Well, the Trust said firstly that it wanted to apologise to the families who've spoken to the BBC. It said that its neonatal service was a handful of specialist centres across the country, caring for the most poorly babies with complex conditions and needs. It also said that the vast majority of births were safe and the number of potentially avoidable deaths are very small. The Care Quality Commission told us that they inspected Leeds maternity units in December following concerns raised by families and through their ongoing monitoring, and they say that the findings of that inspection will be published shortly.
Divya, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you. Well, if you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised in any of our reports tonight, you can contact the BBC Action Line via bbc.co.uk/action line for details of organisations which offer advice and support. Those details on your screen now. You're watching Friday's Look North. Still to come on tonight's programme. We meet the 10-year-old from Yorkshire rubbing shoulders with the stars and about to appear in a Hollywood movie. But first, a woman who was sexually abused by groups of men while living in a children's home in Bradford says the city must be one of the areas included in the local inquiries into grooming gangs. 9 men were convicted of abusing Fiona Goddard when she was a teenager in care. Yesterday, the government announced there'll be a rapid national review and also 5 local inquiries. Fiona, who has waived her right to anonymity, has been speaking to our Home Affairs correspondent, Emma Glasby.
I was in the care home, I was getting abused. Social services, the police force, the care homes, all of them were fully aware, and I was told it was my lifestyle choice and I had to go and deal with it.
Fiona Goddard was sexually abused by gangs of men whilst in care as a child in Bradford. The men, mostly of Pakistani heritage, would turn up at her children's home when she was as young as 14 to take her out and abuse her. In 2014, she spoke to Look North about what had happened. It led to a police investigation and 9 men being found guilty of sexual offences.
Yet for too long, this horrific abuse was allowed to continue. Victims were ignored, perpetrators were left unpunished, and too many people looked the other way.
Now Fiona is closely following the news that the government has announced a rapid review into grooming gangs and 5 local inquiries in Oldham and in 4 other areas yet to be confirmed.
As much as I welcome inquiries, I don't feel unless the government are going to force the councils to do them, places like Bradford have already made it clear that they don't want to do an inquiry into themselves. So the government can't just leave it down to the local councils to decide on if they're going to be investigated. I also think the other issue is these local inquiries need to promise that there's going to be accountability for the professionals that did do wrong, because I want to know where these people are working, if they're still working with vulnerable people, if they've retired with a pension.
The issue of grooming gangs has been back under debate after tech billionaire Elon Musk and several MPs called for a national inquiry.
For me, I don't like being used as a political pawn, because that's what I feel like it is. I don't think any of them have anyone's best interests at heart. It's all a political game. I also don't think it should have taken Elon Musk getting involved to have people talking about it. I think this should have been front and centre of MPs' minds anyway. Unless they speak to the victims and find out how we feel and what we've actually been through, then I don't think they can make an educated decision, and they shouldn't really be speaking for us.
Tonight, Bradford Council told us it's not clear yet whether the Home Secretary wants to go to local places which have never reviewed child sexual exploitation, or places like ours which have done a significant amount of investigations. The Home Secretary is welcome to see the work agencies do in Bradford to keep children safe. Emma Glasby, BBC Look North in Bradford.
And thank you to Fiona for bravely speaking out. Meanwhile, today, 3 members of a grooming gang operating in Keighley have been jailed. Bradford Crown Court heard they targeted 2 vulnerable girls, with one victim saying she was plied with drugs and alcohol to numb the abuse. It means we can also now report on the convictions of another 5 men who were also found guilty of rape or indecent assault. Well, our reporter Ollie Constable joins us now with the details. Ollie.
Thanks, Amanda. Yeah, today we've been at Bradford Crown Court to hear the latest people to be sentenced for this abuse. These men, Fayaz Ahmed, Imtiaz Ahmed and Ibra Hussain, were found guilty of rape against a young girl. They were jailed for between 6.5 years to 9 years for their roles. All 3 denied the offences, but a trial found they were guilty of rape. The trial heard the young girl was around 13 years old when she was abused in the late 1990s. Giving evidence, she said she was passed on to other men for sex. Fayaz Ahmed and Ibra Hussain fled the country before trial. They're wanted by police and were sentenced in their absence. Well, the conclusion of this case means we can now tell you about another linked case which took place in Keighley around the same time against the same victim. These 5 men stood trial back in October 2023. Amriez Iskar, Pervez Askar, Mohammed Din, Sajid Mahmood Khan and Zerun Razak. They were jailed last year, but restrictions meant we couldn't tell you until after the other men were sentenced. All were jailed for rape, except Pervez Askar, who was jailed for indecent assaults. They were sentenced to between 3 years and 14 years for their offences. Well, today police welcomed these prison terms for all 8 men. The judge praised the bravery of the victims. Combined, they will have been sentenced to nearly 58 years in prison. These 2 men, they are Ahmed and Hussain. They remain on the run.
Thank you, Ollie. On with the rest of the day's news, and a man who left the country after an 18-year-old was stabbed to death in Leeds has been found not guilty of his murder. Jamie Mear was attacked in Armley in March 2023. Ranai Wilkes, who's 23, has been convicted of his manslaughter following a trial at Leeds Crown Court and will be sentenced on the 3rd of February. Wilkes left the UK following Jamie's death, along with 3 other men who remain wanted by police. A murder investigation has been launched after a man was found dead in Doncaster. Police were called to Maple Grove in Conisbrough late last night after the body of a 64-year-old man was discovered. Emergency services attended the scene where the man was later pronounced dead. A 23-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. Northern Rail has announced their biggest ever investment, building over 400 new trains by 2050. The operator has begun looking for a manufacturer to replace their diesel models to help reach the government's net zero targets. Northern expect to award the building contract by 2026, with the first replacement trains carrying passengers across Yorkshire by 2030. OK, let's have some Friday night sport now, and we start with football. After a break from their FA Cup adventure at Elland Road last weekend, Harrogate Town tonight returned to the main task in hand, trying to get away from the wrong end of League Two. They're getting ready to host Cheltenham, and our sports reporter Paul Ogden is there for us. Oggy.
Yes, Amanda, match night again already for Harrogate Town, a 7:45 kick-off here against Cheltenham. And there is still quite a lot of time for them to do the business that you describe and get themselves away from the wrong end of League Two. So much goodwill created by what Harrogate did on the field at Elland Road against Leeds United. And I wonder whether our guest Sarah Barry, Chief Executive Officer of Harrogate Town, can exploit that in an acceptable way, Sarah, between now and the end of the season.
We will definitely be exploiting that in a very acceptable way, I'm sure, till the end.
How concerned are you that the bubble might have burst now for Harrogate Town now that they're out of the cup?
I actually feel the opposite of that. It feels really very much like we've turned a corner. So yeah, in a way, the bubble, we never want it to burst. It's the FA Cup, it's amazing, it was fantastic. However, as you know, we've got to focus fully on the league now, and we can do that coming off the back of an amazing performance. So confidence is riding high, and we all feel club-wide, across every single aspect of the club, we've turned a corner. Not just the cup match, but the win that we had before that at Barrow as well. So we've had a couple of fantastic games.
Now, the town needs to stay interested in Harrogate Town.
Yeah.
And if the noise levels in that away section at Elland Road are anything to go by, people should be full of anticipation for this match against Cheltenham here tonight and the rest of the season.
Yeah, so the first thing we did Monday morning off the back of that, we as a club were still absolutely buzzing. You can imagine, can't you, coming into work Monday, still beaming smiles on our faces, going, right, how do we capture this? How do we keep it going for Friday? So looking at promotions, what do we do for the next couple of home games, which are absolutely crucial to us.
Good luck to you tonight and for the rest of the season, and thanks for being our guest tonight on Look North, Sarah. This will not be the last time we have a conversation, I hope. And it all resumes in the Football League. Perhaps the most eagerly anticipated fixture of the rest of the weekend for our teams is on Sunday lunchtime at Elland Road. Sheffield Wednesday are Leeds United's visitors for that high noon kick-off. One look at the table tells you that Sheffield United might actually be asking for a favour from their near and dear neighbours, Sheffield Wednesday, who themselves have their own ambitions and realistic ones to topple an increasingly impressive Leeds United. Full match commentary on BBC Radio Leeds and BBC Radio Sheffield. I can promise you a very different tone in either one of those. And speaking of ambitions, here in North Yorkshire, in terms of sport, the new captain of the England Women's Rugby Union team, Zoe Aldcroft, she says that she is going to lead by example for the first year of her tenure as captain of the England Rugby Union team. It's going to be quite a momentous year for England and, of course, for her sport. Not only are they going to go for a fourth consecutive Six Nations title, but also, of course, England is host nation of the Women's Rugby World Cup in August, and York is one of the host venues.
Oggy, thank you very much. Now, we love it when a bit of Hollywood is nurtured right here in Yorkshire. 10-year-old schoolgirl Matilda Firth from Kirklees is about to feature in a new horror film that's been released today. Wolfman, starring Christopher Abbott and Julia Garner, features werewolves, scary music, stunts and lots of screaming. I caught up with her earlier on to find out how she got the part.
So they sent me over a self-tape, which is where they give you a script and you have to learn it, and if they like you they send you to auditions. We did an audition online and then we did one in London, and then I found out I got the job.
Wow, it's very competitive, isn't it? And let's talk about this film, shall we? Wolfman is a certificate 15. Surely you haven't seen it?
Actually I have.
You're joking.
I'm not.
Can you tell us a little bit about what it's about without scaring our audience?
Well, it's about this family and they go to live in their dad's home, but Blake starts to change, my dad starts to change, and it all just really carries on from there.
And what's it like to be on set with all these superstars?
It's amazing. Julia Garner and Christopher Abbott are so amazing at their job, and they're such amazing actresses and actors, and Lee Winnell is an amazing director. So.
Wow, so you're learning from the best. But speaking of learning, you are only 10. How are you balancing education with this movie world?
So I have a tutor who teaches me everything that my school are doing at the same time, so like maths and English, and also my school are just really supportive, and they let me go off and do my acting jobs.
And going back to the movie world, you've got a lot of experience already, haven't you?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
So I was in like Netflix's Subservience with Megan Fox. I was in Disney's Disenchanted with Patrick Dempsey. I was in Time with Jodie Whittaker. And when I was 6, I was in the McDonald's Christmas advert.
Wow, there's a lot of big names many of us will have heard of. Well, I think you're going to have an amazing career ahead of you. I am over 15, so I will be going to see you at the cinema. The film's out today, isn't it?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming in.
No problem.
Oh, she was lovely. Now, a cat found close to death in Leeds just before Christmas is on the road to recovery after the charity The Cat Action Trust paid for his treatment. Mr. Jingles gathered quite a following on Facebook after he was found seriously hurt. Now he's much better and the charity is appealing for donations to cover its costs and a new owner to give him the loving home he deserves. Kathy Killick has the story.
You're back and you've not got your cone on anymore.
Recovering after a truly horrible few weeks, Mr. Jingles is in the lap of love. Sisters Jess and Caroline Carr have been looking after him since he was found abandoned in Leeds with a broken leg, starving and hypothermic 2 days before Christmas.
You can't open your home at Christmas, when can you? When they got him out of the carrier, I cried. I'd never seen a cat in such a state. He had just this big, lovely, fluffy head, and then the rest of his body was just dirty, cold, and he just was hobbling along, and he was just in so much pain and so scared.
Is it humorous?
Mr. Jingles's leg had been hit so hard by a kick or a car it couldn't be saved and had to be amputated. But he was back at the vet's today to have his stitches out.
We're just going to cut the stitches one at a time and then we'll pull them out.
The stitches are gently removed with Mr. Jingles staying remarkably calm. The Cat Action Trust paid £3,000 for his surgery and care, undoubtedly saving his life. And he should manage just fine on 3 legs.
Oh, there we go. He will lead a completely normal life. If he wanted to, he could jump down from this table, so his mobility's great. He's in perfect condition now, and if he stayed that way, cats are so nimble, and acrobatic that really it won't hamper him at all. He'll be fine, yeah.
With a lot of love and attention, we'll get you there, won't we? We'll introduce you to toys, learning how to climb the steps, and we'll get him back on track.
A forever home may still be needed, but for now, Mr. Jingles is staying where he knows he's loved. Kathy Killick, BBC Look North, Leeds.
Oh, isn't he absolutely gorgeous? We wish him a safe and quick recovery. Now, sticking with the animal theme, the Yorkshire Wildlife Park is celebrating the first birthday of a critically endangered black rhino. Just take a look at this. This is Rocco, doing really well despite the cold weather in Doncaster at the moment. Not sure what he thinks of his #1 balloon there. Well, Rocco is part of an international breeding programme attempting to revive the species. Oh, it's killing me. Rhinos, cats.
All these lovely animals, just for us, Amanda.
I know. What
just
a treat.
a little doggy.
Yes, next time.
It's getting colder
Oh,
over the
not
weekend.
again.
Not a return to the
Sure
snow or anything
not.
like that. Lots of settled weather, but it is getting chillier for the weekend before those temperatures recover next week. And then we're looking at something a little bit more unsettled towards the back end of the week. There's still lots of soggy feels around, isn't there, after all of that snow melt throughout the week. This one taken near Penistone. And it was a bit of a misty start in the Vale of York, for example, this morning. We've certainly got more of that to come through the course of the weekend. You can keep your pictures coming into the Weather Watchers page or on social media, Keely.Donovan on Instagram. So yeah, a cooler weekend to come. We'll start off tomorrow on a grey note, but I think we will see conditions gradually brightening up through the day, and through the afternoon we should see some spells of sunshine around. I think overall Sunday will stay fairly gloomy in comparison. So high pressure over the continent, starting to move away eastwards, so drawing up air from the south, and it's the air over the continent that's quite chilly. They've been having sharp frosts over the last few days, so we'll import that air through the weekend, but there will be a lot of settled weather to come. So through this afternoon, there was some brightness around, some breaks in the cloud, but overall there was quite a bit of cloud, and there's certainly quite a bit of cloud out there at the moment. So the cloud will lower. Low cloud becoming quite extensive overnight, some breaks in it, and we will have some mist and fog patches developing in places overnight. We're looking at a frost with temperatures down to 1 or 2 degrees, some spots dropping as low as freezing point. Let's have a quick look at those high water times. Then 7 o'clock on the nose in Scarborough and at 6:46 in Whitby. So we start the morning on rather a grey, misty note. I think the mist and the fog, some patches could linger, but it would gradually lift, and then we'll slowly see it brightening. Certainly into the afternoon, we're expecting brighter skies to spread down from the northwest, so some sunshine through the course of the afternoon. But temperatures on the chilly side only getting up to around 4 or 5 degrees with just a light breeze. It'll be even cooler than that on Sunday, so quite extensive low cloud, mist and fog on Sunday. Some of that lingering, and it will remain cloudy throughout the day. Temperatures really struggling on Sunday, just 2 or 3 degrees. Some spots, for example, the North York Moors, may well stay below freezing. Amanda.
Keely, thank you very much. I think the bobble hat is becoming a permanent feature. Fingers crossed for some sunshine soon. That's it from us. Do have a lovely weekend. We'll be back with the latest news and weather just after 10 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. Goodbye.